So you guys have probably heard of YEAT. He broke through the scene back in mid-2021 with his mixtape 4L and his studio album release Up To Me, specifically with the songs Money So Big and Get Busy. TikTok played a huge part in this, blowing up a few of his sounds. He's currently at 22 million monthly listeners and just released his new album 2093. It's an album with 22 tracks, and the songs are supposed to represent what music's gonna be like for a future dystopian society in 2093. The album sold 70,000 copies first week. The beats are super futuristic and the vocals are that typical unique YEAT style. Today I'm gonna be breaking down how he achieved these sounds both in the vocals and the beats, so you can bring some of those elements into your own sound. Alright, so after listening to the album, here's a few things that we can keep in mind when we're making these type of beats. So the beats use lots of synths, a lot of drum sounds that aren't specifically used for this genre. For example, swapping out the hip hop snare for like an EDM snare. In certain more dancey tracks within this album, the 808/bass lines are more busy. In quite a few of these tracks, the producer uses pitch slides, which you can either do with the little knob on your MIDI keyboard, or you can just click this slide button on MIDI for FL. Another technique which came up a few times is when you distort a sound heaps and then you just add heaps of reverb onto it after. And finally, there are a few tracks that sample other songs, so if you're trying to find like old vintage unique sounds, I recommend using Samplet. With all that in mind, let's get straight to making the song. Alright, step one for today is going to be the melodic aspects of the beat. I'm going to be starting this beat at 114 BPM just to get that dancey club vibe. Alright, first thing we're going to start with is a bass line. So I started with this bass sound from Diva. A lot of the beats on this album have bass lines which stay fairly stagnant and only stay on one or two notes, so that's what I'm going to do for this bass line. A way to make this less boring is just to add these little accent notes. To process this bass, I just added heaps of distortion, just using Decapitator. Then I cut the low end out and just sidechained it using the LFO tool. Once I had this sound down, I just layered it with another bass one shot because it had a thicker low end to it. This bass has a slightly different melody and I just took out a few notes from it. This bass here is also running through Decapitator for some distortion and then also another LFO tool for sidechaining. After the bass, I just added in a lead to fill the high end of the beat. It's just a Diva preset playing two notes and then the lead's just running through a Portal preset. Portal is definitely a helpful tool to get these kind of soundscapes because it creates some really crazy alien sounds. Alright, so once we got these melodic aspects of the main beat, now we want to just add a little bit of an intro. I'm going to use some contact strings just to give that old vintage sample vibe before the actual beat comes in. I just clicked in this dark chord progression kind of following the notes of the bass line. Then I just layered those chords with a contact cello as well. Alright, once you got all your melodic aspects down, step two for today is the drums. In this beat, I'm going for a more dancey style vibe, so instead of the typical hi-hat trap style drum patterns, I'm going to be using a bit more of a pop style drum pattern. So like I mentioned before, using sounds from different genres definitely helps to get that 2093 sound through. So for this beat, I'm using more of an EDM/poppy kind of snare, and then I'm just going to put the snare on the 2 and 4 instead of just the third beat. After the snare, we got to add the kick. Here I used more of an acoustic-y kick, and I just put it on every fourth step of the beat. Once we've got this bounce, it's time for some of the perks. Firstly, I use this turntable effect in place of hi-hats just to give it a more unique sound. And then I just ran that through OTT and some gross beats so it just swells up throughout each bar. Finally, I just put this tom on every 2 step. Then that tom is running through heaps of distortion and then of course a sidechain. Finally, I added some little transitions and noises to bring the whole beat together. Alright, now we've got a bit of a complete beat, so it's time for step 3, the vocals. In terms of delivery, you basically need to sound like you can barely speak English and then put on a kind of low, mumbly voice. This is what the vocals sounded like after I recorded them. Now the magic of Yeat's vocals really come alive when you put on the effects. So to start off mixing this vocal, I just used the vocal preset from my video how to mix vocals in FL Studio. Just leave a link to that in the description. But then the key to really make these vocals sound like Yeat is to add heaps of delay and then use this plugin called Lil Alter Boy. And then with Lil Alter Boy, I just pitched it up 1 octave and then I just took the mix of that down a bit so it's not overpowering. Alright, once we got the main vocals, we can't have a Yeat song without those classic ad-libs. Once you got some oohs that kind of sound cool, then just put the preset back on it, and for this preset, just add a little bit more Lil Alter Boy so there's more of that high voice in it. And then put some more delay and reverb on it as well, just to finish it off and tuck it in the background. Then finally, just twist this little stereo knob to make it more wide. Really quick, if you don't want to follow all these instructions, I'll just put a download link for this FLP. Just before I play the final song, thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed it or got something out of it, I'd really appreciate it if you just go down and hit subscribe. Alright, so if you follow all these steps closely, you should have a song that sounds a little bit like this.